Once upon a time in South America, there was a country called Brazil. Within Brazil, there was a city which was called Curitiba. Curitiba was in the southeast of Brazil, and it was famous for being one of the most sustainable cities in the world. And we are going to learn about this city today. Let me introduce you to the absolute legend, Jaime Lerner. In 1974, Jaime Lerner had an idea. He had a plan. What he wanted to do was the first thing that had never been done anywhere else in the world. He was an architect, and at that point he was also the mayor of Curitiba. He decided that instead of doing a metro, which is what he planned to do to try and reduce the traffic congestion in Curitiba, which at that point was becoming a problem, he decided instead of doing a metro, which is underneath the ground, he would do a bus, which would be over the ground, but it would be like a rapid transit bus, which had never been done before. And this is what it was. It's not your usual type of bus that has just bus stops where you flag the bus down. It has designated bus stations almost within the city, and this is what stands Curitiba out from the rest of the world in terms of its urban planning for traffic management. Especially the bus lanes are separated from cars. We are going to learn about this today and about other incredible projects and features of urban design that Curitiba has done to make it one of the most sustainable cities in the world. But first, a little bit about Curitiba. Curitiba has a population of 1.77 million people. This makes it the 8th biggest city in Brazil. It is most famous for, in the whole world, as being the place of innovation. It's known as a visionary city. And this is because of its urban planning system and its BRT. So back to the BRT. Now, a whopping 80% of Curitiba use the BRT. It is cheaper to run than a tube station, and the bus fare is a really low cost, and it's the same wherever you go. So it is nice and cheap. In fact, many employers subsidize their employees who use it, which means that if you work for a company, you can then get a free bus ticket. In fact, no one lives more than 400 meters away from the BRT, which means that it really encourages people to use it, and therefore 80% do use it. It's cheap and it's convenient. It is also very safe, as the bus lanes are separated from the cars, and when you're waiting for the bus to come, it's almost like getting on, if you've been on the underground in London, everyone lines up and gets on it rather than has one long queue to the door. So it's fast to board. Clever, eh? So clever that there are many cities around the world who have actually also taken on BRTs, and Rio de Janeiro has 6,000 buses and 138 bus stations. That's Rio de Janeiro. So this is our case study for Brazil as well. So it's interesting that that has also used it as a solution to reduce their traffic congestion. So it is a massive thumbs up to the BRT, but there is more. Now, Curitiba also really focused on green parks and space. In fact, 30 parks and green spaces were created. Many of them, as you can see here, have been built by rivers. This means that they act as a floodplain. Should the river flood, they will absorb the water. It also means that they can use the areas for recreation, especially lakes. For example, going boating. They have also planted this is a tree, 1.5 million trees. And they have restricted corridors of growth, which means that urban growth is only restricted along transport routes, therefore protecting green space. Now, why is this important? We know that green space, spending time in nature, is really, really good for health, wellness, and mental health. Did you know that capybaras are commonly found in parks in Curitiba? So by having more parks, you'll get increased capybaras and increased general biodiversity. They are the world's largest rodent, and they are semi-aquatic, which means they always live near water. So this is another reason why it's really important to create green space near water in Curitiba to attract the capybara. And they're also very cute. Trees, as we know, are carbon sequesters, i.e. they store carbon and are the lungs of the planet. So by planting more trees, they will store more carbon. So there are lots of benefits of parks and green spaces, and Curitiba has done a really, really good job in ensuring that the population and the residents of its city have a lot of access to these spaces. Quickly, cannot be ignored and is absolutely brilliant. Cycling is obviously a really good way for residents to get around. It helps them with their health benefits. It reduces traffic and therefore reduces pollution. Curitiba has created over 400 kilometres of cycle routes throughout the city, and it also has a lot of bike parking. And if you use the BRT and cycle, you get cheaper fairs. One of my favourites is their Green Exchange programme. This is where residents exchange their waste, a bus ticket, or food. This has many advantages. For example, the urban poor areas are kept really, really clean, despite waste trucks not being able to reach them very easily, because the people are incentivised to give their waste to get bus tickets or food. In fact, the Green Exchange programme processes 300 tonnes of waste a month, and now 2/3 of waste in Curitiba is recycled. Another big thumbs up for the planet. Well done, Curitiba. Right, finally, Curitiba is also very, very clever. They understand that they have to provide jobs for people, and they have to do that, they still have to do manufacturing. We know that manufacturing does create pollution, and unfortunately there's no going about that for the moment to avoid that with Curitiba. But what they've done is quite clever. They have built the new industrial zones on the edge of the cities. These are away from the green spaces, lakes and rivers. So if you imagine for example, the wind blows in this direction. By putting a factory on this side, any of the pollution is going to blow away from the city, therefore not polluting the residents. They also built 20,000 new houses near the factories so that people could live near them and therefore cycle or walk to work rather than driving to work. And this obviously created a lot of employment for the residents of Curitiba. Don't forget that sustainability is not all about the environment, it's also about the economy. You can't have a city that is sustainable if it's not making money. So it has to be a balance between making money and the environment. So to conclude, sustainability is all about balancing the environmental impacts with driving the economy and looking after the people. What Curitiba has done well is this. If you look at all the components that they've done, all the projects they've done, they've tried to reduce the environmental damage, but also ensuring that the economy is growing and that people there's a strong community within the city. Every single thing they've done, whether it's been the cycle lanes in no order, the BRT, the Green Exchange programme, whether it's been the new industrial zone, and of course the green parks. All of these have ensured that traffic is reduced, there's less pollution in the atmosphere, people can still fundamentally get to work, and people can get to enjoy the green spaces as well. So that is why it's been really, really successful, and that is why it is their concept, especially of the BRT, has been used across the world in different countries as an example of sustainable urban planning. So I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope you are now feeling more confident about what Curitiba has done to make it a sustainable city.